In this week's Actionable Intelligence, we continue our conversation with the United Kingdom's Royal Air Force's top officer. Defense News' Aaron Mehta spoke to Sir Mike Wigston about the common fuel standards for planes, as well as how the service expects to meet or exceed the UK's goal to become carbon neutral.
You know, you mentioned the supply chain issue, which has been an issue in the past when the US at least has experimented, the Navy in particular, experimented with alternative fuel sources. One of the big concerns we heard was this constant litany of, okay, but what if, you don't want to have it be reliable on this source of fuel that might not be available out in the field or might not be easily accessible in the field. But, you mentioned also your air chief working with the other air chiefs. I'm wondering if there's a way that you're at least looking at or talking to your fellow air chiefs about trying to get everyone on kind of a common, I don't want to say common fuel source, but at least get more and more buy-in to these alternative fuels to be able to make sure that the supply chain is robust across the world, given how many co-operations, joint operations are done.
Yes. So there's two elements to that. The first one is recognizing that the commercial aviation sector has got an enormous part to play in this, and so for all of our nations, the UK, the US, all around the world, it's got to be a cross-government initiative. And in the UK, we've established under the Prime Minister a Jet Zero Council, which is primarily about civil aviation, and it's about driving the commercial aviation sector down to a net zero position. And a large part of that is about commercializing synthetic fuel production and making sure that it's available at the pumps on the around the civil airspace infrastructure. So military air forces can take advantage of that. The second thing is exactly as you say, the pulling together the air chiefs and agreeing a common ambition, and that's something that we are proposing to our fellow air chiefs over the next few months, and so that by the end of the year, I would like to hope, and I'm certainly aiming for a common declaration amongst global air chiefs that these are the steps that we're going to take collectively, because this is the only way that I think we're going to achieve this, to get to a position where we are consuming far less hydrocarbons in fuel terms. But of course, as any expert in this, and I don't pretend to be an expert in this, but as any expert in this would say, your fuel burn, your hydrocarbon fuel burn is just the start of it. And we've got a long way to go across all sectors of our business.
Do you have a target date in mind for net zero for the RAF?
So the United Kingdom actually legislated that we would be net zero by 2050, and so that's by law. So there's a backstop there of 2050 for me. I've actually set the target to my team of 2040, and because that's in part because I have a hunch that that these dates might need to come forward because as we've seen in Washington this week, as this becomes more of a pressing issue and becomes to the level of being recognized as a crisis in people's minds, then people will demand perhaps net zero even earlier. So I've set the target of 2040 for the Royal Air Force, and my team are working on that now, and that will require additional investment, and it will require me diverting investment from equipment and platforms into infrastructure and into how we operate. But I think that's a price that we're going to have to accept, that we're going to have to pay, and I see a leading role for the Royal Air Force in that.
Okay. Well, Sir Mike, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you chatting with us, and hope to see you again soon.
Yeah, Aaron, it's been a great pleasure, and I've really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Aaron. Now for defense industry headlines. The French DGA military procurement agency successfully test-fired the M51.2 strategic ballistic missile on April 28 from its Biscarrosse test site on France's Atlantic coast. The missile, central to France's nuclear deterrence policy, wasn't carrying a warhead, and the test met its treaty requirements according to the Ministry for the Armed Forces. Although the M51.2 missile is already operational, it's regularly tested. Data and lessons learned from the test are used for development of the next increment of the missile, the M51.3, which is scheduled for delivery to the French Navy in 2025. This version should have a range several hundred kilometers beyond the capacity of the M51.2, and it will equip the 4 third-generation nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarines that will replace the Le Tromphant class in 2035. The DGA's missile test team followed the missile until it landed in the North Atlantic. The 61 M51 is the key component to the French Strategic Ocean Force. Each missile can carry 6 to 10 independently targetable TN-75 thermonuclear warheads. The prime contractor for the program is Ariane Group. The Biden administration approved a trio of potential foreign military sales cases for Australia and India for items worth a potential $4.36 billion for American companies. Australia was cleared to purchase a package of heavy armored combat systems with an estimated price tag of nearly $1.7 billion and 4 CH-47F Chinook cargo helicopters worth about $259 million. India was cleared to purchase 6 P-8I maritime surveillance aircraft worth an estimated $2.2 billion. The potential sales go to two key allies for the U.S. as it's increasingly focused on the Pacific. Both nations are part of the Quad, a group of like-minded partners that also includes the United States and Japan. Foreign military sales notification figures are potential arms sales that the State Department internally cleared, then passed to Congress through the Defense Security Cooperation Agency. One thing to note is that these notifications aren't final sales. They'll go to negotiations where dollar figures and quantities of equipment can change. The Pentagon announced that it would cancel all of the border construction projects funded by siphoning off from the Department of Defense to build military schools, training facilities, and more. A DoD spokesperson announced that the agency has begun taking all necessary actions to cancel border projects and to coordinate with its interagency partners. In total, the Pentagon put $11 billion of its budget into border construction after then-President Donald Trump made a declaration of emergency at the border. About $1.2 billion was awarded to build 97 miles of wall, according to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And that's it in industry news. When we return, personal finance expert Jeanette Mack shows you the best time to get a personal loan.